Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm in a situation where I'm coming back to YouTube after 2016, guys. I hope this goes better than I want it to. Frankly, I am excited to embark on this journey so that we can have a good time together again, share good things, and continue to share our knowledge, experiences, and expertise with each other. Fujifilm X100V focus on life enhancement with technical details included. Today, our first video will be about one of the most loved cameras of recent times, the Fujifilm X100V. The experiences you'll see on this channel will generally focus more on what these products bring to our lives rather than just the technical details. Yes, those will definitely be included too. But what do they add to our lives? Is it a necessity or is it more than that? Is it a necessity? Do we really need this or even more? Together, we will try to find answers to these questions. I'm back with you on this channel. Let's start by taking a look at the short story of the Fujifilm X100V. The Fujifilm X100V has actually been around for quite a while, so this is actually the fifth camera in the series. It was a camera. That's why the 100 is followed by AV. Before this, there were the previous models X100, X100S, T, and F. Each of these represented 1, 2, 3, and 4. Aside from that, the X100V had a completely different structure. It got a lot of attention. It really caught people's eye. It went out of stock, and you couldn't find it anywhere. In fact, you even had the chance to find the product at prices several times higher than the actual retail price. If you're lucky. Because when I recommended the product to many of my friends, they could not find it in Turkey or abroad either. This wasn't just a situation unique to us in Turkey, but it was really hard for them to get their hands on this product. Frankly, one of the best aspects of this camera, for me, is that you can reach every detail with your hand, just like in analog cameras. In other words, we were not going through a digital screen or by entering buttons into a menu, but rather through these buttons and wheels that you see on the outside. I think it has a very sensitive structure and, with constant updates, they are reloading almost all the features of other cameras into this camera. Honestly, it's now my go-to camera for outdoor use. In this heat, I avoid carrying other cameras. Its fixed lens is unique. A non-interchangeable lens enhances composition focus, like a real photographer with a 35mm or 50mm lens, akin to old analog cameras. For instance, phone shots go unnoticed, but a big camera draws attention. A camera with a non-interchangeable lens doesn't seem very appealing to most of us at first, but later on, it allows you to dive directly into the composition, like a real photographer, whether it's with a 35mm or 50mm lens, just like you would with old analog cameras. For instance, when you pull out your phone to take a shot in a composition, no one really pays attention, but when you point a big camera at something, everything changes. Honestly, being able to capture that composition again, especially if you're not using a telephoto lens, isn't that easy, but when you point a big camera at something, everything changes. Honestly, being able to capture that composition again, especially if you're not using a telephoto lens, isn't that easy. But these cameras are different. Honestly, even when you're just walking around on the street, nobody seems bothered by you or makes a face. Let's talk about the general and visible features of the camera, or rather, I call these its beauty because, honestly, these buttons and dials are really beautiful to me. Frankly, unfortunately, I cannot work this comfortably with the Canon R5C that I use for professional work. Because yes, it has too many features, too many buttons and dials. Yes, it's all yes, but because you don't have quick access to so many features, these aspects become really appealing to me, especially when I'm out traveling or doing street photography. It's a great lens with an f2 aperture. The fact that it has a fixed lens might honestly scare you at first. Using a lens at this focal length reveals its ease and beauty. Many renowned photographers use 35mm and 50mm lenses. You'll really see how things change when you start getting into the subject. You probably know that many renowned photographers who have been in the game for years, especially in the realm of analog photography, work with 35mm and 50mm lenses. And almost all of them use these as their prime lenses. The lenses that are considered most suitable for the human field of view and eye perspective are described as 35mm and 50mm. I'm just repeating what they say. Now this lens right here, this lens, it's a tiny lens. This is a moving mechanism on the lens. You can use this mechanism in two ways. If you're using manual focus, you can adjust the sharpness from here. Another feature of this camera is that you can easily switch from 35mm to 50mm and 70mm using the ring right here for digital zoom. The lens shows an aperture of f2 and you can go all the way up to 16. If you want to use it completely manually, you can make adjustments from here. Honestly, you can do that with the assignable buttons on the camera, but I've never used that feature. Since the lens has an aperture, I definitely prefer to use it. If we look at the side of the camera, we have three settings here. This manual shows options for continuous and single shooting. This is a feature you'll see on almost all cameras. Right here, we have the side of the camera welcoming us. Along with that, if you have the gray option that matches the camera's color, you can use a gray cover, and if you're using black, you have a black cover as well. I think this cover is quite stylish. And it looks aesthetic. Among the other features of the camera, you can easily adjust your exposure. With this you see right on top. When you pull it up a bit, you can adjust the ISO right after you hear the click sound. Also, aside from all the settings, there's an automatic mode here. Bold mode versus. In the meantime, you can quickly access the settings that you can find on all cameras with just a flick of your hand. You probably already see these on the digital display. You can also see the exposure compensation dial right here at the top, just above your hand. I think it's a really successful feature and it comes across as very useful. There's a flash input on the top. As you might have guessed, you can of course plug in a flash or use this to make other connections. But frankly, I don't think there is such a preference. The flash is on the front and inside. You can also consider using the built-in flash. Right in front of the camera, you can find the custom buttons that can be found on many cameras. There is also one of these custom buttons on the back under your finger. You can use whatever you throw at them. We have another small button on top, and here, right in front of the camera. It works on three sides, or rather on two sides and one button that works inwards. When you press this button, I switch to Wi-Fi, and at least that's how I use it in my settings. When you hold it down, the Wi-Fi activates, and you can connect your cameras to the Fujifilm X app, compare settings, or switch directly to transfer mode. One of the most important features of this camera is that it has a built-in ND filter. When you hold it down, the Wi-Fi activates, and you can connect your camera to the Fujifilm X app, compare settings, or switch directly to transfer mode. One of the most important features of this camera is that it has a built-in ND filter. What's the use of the built-in ND? You can use this ND filter without attaching another one. Slide it right and hold to activate. Look through the viewfinder and hold the left button to see the movement. When you slide it to the right and hold it down, you access the ND filter and it activates. When you look through the viewfinder and hold down the button on the left, you'll see the movement happening here. There's an optical viewfinder here. While composing your shot through this optical viewfinder, it also shows you a magnified view, giving you a real sense of the subject's actual digital output. I think this is a really nice feature. At the same time, you can also use this optical viewfinder electronically. It completely leaves this up to you. The buttons on the back of the camera, the drive-in, delay buttons are in the same spot, along with our other classic buttons. As always, next to the custom mode, one of the most important features of Fuji, for me, is the Q mode. When you press in Q mode, you can access the features you've assigned to the camera through the shortcuts that pop up on the screen. As you can see, this camera has a tiltable screen that can bend up and down at the back. This LCD screen is quite sufficient and successful. Even though it might be a bit small, I think it's quite sufficient for a camera of this size. During this time, it has a great screen where you can autofocus, adjust your sharpness, and also switch to film simulations and open the balance. On the right side, there are inputs for microphone, remote control, Type-C USB, and micro HDMI. So, I'm hoping Fuji will give us a nice feature. That makes it easier to frame your shots when taking vertical photos. Right here, on the right side, as you can see, there's a microphone input, a remote control input, a Type-C USB port, and a micro HDMI port. You can connect this HDMI input to a monitor, etc. You probably know the classic connections. You can connect it. You probably know the classic connections. The color range that Fujifilm offers us, with its experience from the analog era, is frankly very successful. Many photographers use Fujifilm cameras for their colors. JPEGs from the camera often surpass RAW files in quality, leading to excellent results. This speeds up the process, allowing quick transfer and sharing of JPEGs to your phone without quality loss. If you ask what this has gained us, it definitely speeds things up. You get the chance to quickly transfer the JPEG versions of your photos to your phone and share them without any loss. This way, you won't have to spend as much time in Lightroom and similar programs. Of course, you might want to make some changes or adjustments. You'll still be using Lightroom and similar programs for those. I think there's no one who doesn't know about Fuji's film simulations by now. If you don't know, you can access it from the link I'll add right below. There are developable tones, colors, and simulations available on websites like Fujifilm X Weekly. All the photos you see in this video were shot entirely in JPEG. More precisely, they were shot in JPEG plus RAW. But I will be presenting these JPEGs to you without making any changes. The film simulation I'm using here is the Kodachrome 2 version. I'm adding the link to it below. Friends who are interested can check it out from there. Likewise, you can assign tones to the camera in 7 different custom modes at the same time. Fuji's film simulations give us an advantage. Frankly, it's very fast, consistent, and delivers beautiful colors. Especially after the loss of depth in analog films, we started to express our emotions through colors and photographs. Honestly, one of the biggest freedoms that Fujifilm provides us is undoubtedly the film simulations. In fact, you can also make changes to the existing simulations and create your own tones. These don't just cover the changes you make in Lightroom or Capture One. You can also activate or deactivate some features of the camera during shooting, or enhance or reduce them. This way, you get the chance to access tones or depths that you wouldn't be able to reach later when you're editing. Now let's talk about the video features of this camera, which honestly, not many people care about. You can shoot video up to 4K at 60 frames per second with this camera. Shoot 4K video, use F-Log mode, slow motion at 120 frames per second. And you can shoot these in F-Log mode and have the chance to process them later. If you want to do slow motion shooting, you can also access up to 120 frames per second in full HD mode. It uses an SD card, and unfortunately, the machine does have a heating problem. Honestly, the camera has never shut down until now. But when you're shooting in 4K, it technically only gives you a maximum of 10 minutes. If you are in 1080 mode, this goes up to 15 minutes. This might be a bit of a problem if you want to shoot something long, but frankly, it's not realistic to shoot something like that with this camera anyway. Let's move the transfer. Honestly, one of my biggest issues with Fujifilm has definitely been its mobile app. This mobile app was updated in the past few months, and with the new X app, it now connects to your phone or device in a much more consistent, faster, and efficient way, allowing you to transfer your files. I know that there are people who want to buy and carry this camera, mainly because of its size. To make a comparison, I have an iPhone 14 Pro in my hand. So, there's a device that's normal size. If you take a look, you will see the difference. There's just this much of a difference. The iPhone looks even longer than the Fujifilm X100V. When you look at it, you could say it's about 3 or 4 iPhone widths in thickness. For a 26 megapixel camera with so many features and functions, I think it's quite small in size. When you look at it closely, it's a camera small enough to fit right in the palm of your hand. Technically, there's nothing else you need to use with the camera. Along with this, I got a neck strap, a sunshade to go with the neck strap, and a UV filter to protect the lens, especially to prevent any damage to the glass. I think when you use these with the filter, you'll have a more efficient, sturdier, and more reliable experience. We have adapter converters that you can use with the entire X100 series. What are these converters for? You can convert the 35mm lens to a 28mm or 50mm equivalent. You buy these converter lenses as extras. As of the summer of 2023, the Turkish market price looks to be around 5,500 lira. Lenses will magnify your camera a little more. It might make it a bit bulkier to carry, but rest assured, you'll have a converter that's quite sufficient in size and won't be uncomfortable at all. If you get this camera, I definitely recommend trying out the 28mm angle, and there are a few other cameras you can compare with this one. You might guess that one of them is Ricoh's camera, which isn't really popular in Turkey and is almost unknown. And there are a few more cameras you can compare with this one. You can probably guess that one of them is Ricoh's camera, which isn't really preferred in Turkey and is almost unknown. Leica Q2 and Q3, one costs $1,300 to $1,400, the other $6,000. But if you look at it from a price-performance perspective, it's a huge gap. I'm saying it's a huge gap because one is a camera that costs around $1,300 to $1,400, while the other is about $6,000. Naturally, among these, it's been especially popular in Turkey lately. And finally, to evaluate who is this camera for? Who should take it? Honestly, whoever finds it should take it, friends. Because, as you can tell from its shape and design, this is a camera you can use for many years, and you could even keep it in your archive to pass down to your grandkids. I say get it if you can find it because this camera is no longer on sale. More precisely, it's out of stock. You can't access this camera as new anywhere in Turkey or anywhere else in the world right now. However, if we look at the old habits, the new model of this camera will probably be introduced in the first or second week of February, right at the beginning of 2024, according to the news circulating on the internet. What will happen? We're eagerly waiting. It could be X, it could be Y. Now, it's the 6th model. You should definitely grab this camera. If you find it secondhand or come across it in your circle, you should definitely grab this camera. Besides that, it's a unique camera that you can use for travel, family photos, and even wedding photography. You can follow my Instagram account for examples, or access the raw files from the links I leave below. Until we meet again in another video, take care.